December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
I was living in Newton County on a farm, and I was still going to high school.
I was at Johnson Station School, sharpening a plow point.
We were listening to the radio, and we heard the president talking about it.
I was an employee of F.W. Woolworth and Company, 107 South Main, Memphis, Tennessee.
McGee High School. I was in the 7th grade, and our principal got the word on the radio, and he called us all to the auditorium.
I was in Jackson, Tennessee with a friend of mine, and we were sitting at a restaurant.
And our teacher told us about the Pearl Harbor, and that's the only way I knew about it. We didn't have a radio at my house.
Everybody was stunned. This couldn't be happening.
Monday morning we got to school together in the chapel, and they was telling us about Pearl Harbor.
Most of our merchandise were from Japan, and I can remember then all the merchandise had to be moved out of the store and destroyed.
And he gave us an old speech about patriotism, that sort of a thing. I don't remember anything else special about that day except that we were shocked by it.
And being a young teenager, I really didn't know what was going on. But I know the shock and the things around the people around there was just dismay.
From Dallas, Texas, the flash, apparently official, President Kennedy died at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
I was a caseworker for the welfare department at Oklahoma's.
I was in 9th grade in Prentice High School, and I was shooting basketball.
A dear friend of mine from Bogota, Colombia, panicked because she thought that we would have an uprising.
I was taking a break and going to lunch, and the custodian stepped out of a door and said, "The president has been killed."
The wind started blowing real hard right through the room, and the teacher made the comment that the elements resented.
And since I had been in a meeting with him earlier, that hit me particularly hard.
I was expecting our child at the time, and my husband put his arms around me, and we stood there and cried.
Throttle up, 314, pitch up, throttle up, running now at 104%. Challenger, go and throttle up. Challenger, go and throttle up. 115 seconds, velocity 2,900 feet.
I was pregnant with my first child, Alex, and I was out having lunch.
We're just a few miles north of Cape Canaveral, and we go outside on the barracks. We're watching it from the yard out front.
Sitting at my desk at Children's Hospital Medical Center in Cincinnati, Ohio.
I was working for the telephone company, and it had gone down to the county annex.
All of a sudden, they just were showing the liftoff. It just exploded, and we just sat there in silence for a few minutes, not believing it.
The gentleman come out and said, "Hey, the Challenger just blew up." And we said, "No, we're watching it."
Just kind of disbelief because it had been built up a lot because of the school teacher, Krista McAuliffe.
And as I stepped off the elevator, people were crying, and the explosion had just happened.
And I'll never forget it. I had the sickest feeling because I just knew I watched 7 people die.
I was living in Birmingham, and I was getting ready for work.
I was at the Knoxville County Schools, and I went in the principal's office, and I heard a teacher come in and say, "A crop duster just flew into the World Trade Center."
We got in, the stewardess sat us down, and the next thing you know, it was really quiet, but we noticed no one else was boarding.
Rode a train into San Francisco, got on a bus to take us downtown, and everything was dead.
Working the midnight shift, and I'd woke up to the television of seeing the airplanes hit the towers.
And about that time, my telephone rang. It was a weird number, and I was scared to answer it. I don't know why. It was my buddy that was in Atlanta, and about the time he was on the phone with me, the second plane hit the second tower.
went to work in downtown Birmingham for about 20 minutes, and then they sent us all home because they were shutting down anywhere within 10 miles of that airport.
Of course, I turned the TV on and then didn't turn it off again for, how many days.
It went from, routine calls to everything is a conspiracy or this could possibly be a terrorist attack.
They turn all the TVs in the airport off. I guess they think that's going to help, but of course it caused chaos. Everybody's bags are everywhere. They're all out in the floor. They're everywhere. And thousands have come. They've just started landing planes.
But that was a very strange feeling to be in San Francisco on a weekday and downtown was completely empty. No people walking around.
I was 6 years old. I was at home with my parents having a nightly devotion. And I looked at my mother and I said, Mom, I asked Jesus to come into my heart.
When I was a young girl, maybe 10 or 12 years old, I made a profession of faith. He became real to me.
Yeah, I went to Buckhead Church, Andy Stanley's church in Atlanta.
I was in a revival meeting in my home church in 1965.
It took many years later, and my best friend from my workplace came to me because I was a mean boss.
I lived in Greenville, Mississippi, and I belonged to Highland Baptist Church.
It was April 17, 2001. It was a special service, evangelistic service at MCC.
We were doing a Beth Moore Bible study here with several of the ladies.
Christ became real to me in 1977. I was 10 years old, and I was in the car. There was a Kroger on the left, there was a McDonald's and a Wendy's there.
And then I remember being followed through with believer's baptism.
It's been a blessing. I've been walking with him maybe 60, 70 years, and he's always been there. I've never carried that burden again.
Wake up, Justin. I've got things in store for you. It's time to move on with your life.
She brought me to a singing group in which we all prayed. I went to her home, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior.
Just the realization of my loss and what he could do to me became a factor that made me struggle for quite some time until I had the courage to step forward and say Jesus is in my life.
I remember Christ just really speaking to me and talking to me, and that's when he really became real to me.
I just knew that my life had to change, and I needed to make God first in my life for my children and for my husband, and to make sure I'm a godly woman and a godly wife and a godly mom. So during that Bible study about 7 years ago is when I can pinpoint when God became very real to me.
And I remember asking Jesus to come into my life and my heart, and he showed me his covenant like a rainbow in my heart. I'll never forget it.
You are forever.